Welcome to Universally Judged with Sierra Burchell. On the Universally Judged podcast, we share the stories that you haven't heard from pageant title holders, models, content creators, and actors. In each interview, our guests share a behind-the-scenes look at their life and the lessons they've learned along their journey. This podcast is created in collaboration with Dive Through, a mental wellness company that helps people dive through what they're going through.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Universally Judged podcast. Today, we have the lead actor of Happy Hazel, a YouTube series where she shows us that even when you have millions of followers, millions of likes, millions of subscribers on YouTube, if you have fame and fortune, things aren't always what they seem. Hazel on the show gives us an inside look that being a content creator in today's world of social media is not always happy. Hazel spends her time trying to make everyone else happy except herself. I had the opportunity to talk to Sabrina, who is of course Hazel in the show, and she gives us an inside look of what it was like to film Happy Hazel, play Hazel, how she went from American Idol to being the lead of Happy Hazel. All right, you guys, let's get into it. Enjoy this conversation with Sabrina Haskett. Thank you so much for taking the time. Welcome to the Universally Judged podcast. It's a pleasure to have you, Sabrina. You are the star of Happy Hazel, which is a YouTube series. Is that the right term?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I've seen it. It's amazing. I love it. You're fabulous. We're going to talk so much about it. But what I want people to know first off is this is basically what it's about, is showing that having millions of followers, having lots of money, having fame, having the fortune of a young creator doesn't necessarily bring happiness, doesn't necessarily mean your life is made and that things are amazing and wonderful. Is that kind of how you would describe the show? How would you describe Happy Hazel?
For sure. I mean, you pretty much nailed it. It's like you said, a short series based about like social media influencer who seems to have it all, you know, the followers, the fame, the money, everything. But it kind of shows the flip side of it, of like the pressures that social media brings and the mental health issues that she personally struggles with, but doesn't necessarily let her followers see. So it's pretty cool.
It is super cool. And being in that role, did you ever feel like, wow, I can really relate to this? Like, this is real.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, I'm not a social media influencer by any means, and I do not have many followers. I do not have a nice house in Malibu, but definitely the mental health side of social media and the pressures of trying to portray somebody that you may not be in real life, for sure. I think everyone can relate to it on some level. This is just kind of a larger scale.
Absolutely. And since being in the role, have you had people come to you and say, wow, like I see things in a different light now, like you and your role have brought about something so important that it isn't necessarily always what it's like on like what people think it's like? Have people come to you and said that their perspectives have been changed?
Yeah, it was really cool. Watching it with friends was really cool because obviously I know everything that happens, but watching them see it like firsthand, the reaction is just unreal. Like you can see, and there's like, they put in little hidden things in all of the episodes, but you really don't see it like really come to light till the last episode. But you could see them catch it and go, wait, that wasn't happy. Oh wait, she's not happy there. Or she's, you know, so it was really cool for them to see and go, oh my gosh, I relate. Like that's how I felt, you know, coming home from a day of work and you're like, oh, exhausted. And it's like a different person when you come home versus when you go, and you're on camera, when you're on at work, you know, it was really cool to see.
Absolutely. It's like putting on that persona that so many people do, whether it's, you know, a more traditional job or in the way of social media. I think people also see social and people who make YouTube videos and everything, they kind of see it as like easy or, well, that's not a real job. And that's what you did in your role as Hazel, is showing that one, it is a job. Two, it isn't so glamorous and fabulous as people think it is. There's a lot of work. There's so much behind the scenes. So from your role as Hazel and then also just kind of what you know now, what would you want people to know about that industry? Like that it is a real job, that there is more to it than just saying, hey guys, on a camera.
Right. I mean, like I said, I personally am not an influencer, so stepping into those shoes was like, I did a lot of research, I watched a lot of videos, I watched a lot of like interviews from people who were, influencers. And, it's kind of this like sad cloud about it of like, there is a pressure that we don't realize that they have to maintain. And then besides that, the editing process takes hours and hours, and people don't realize how much time people really put into these videos. It isn't just, hey guys, this is what I'm doing. It's planned, it's thought through, it's edited. It's so much more that you don't see. So it was really cool to see that perspective of Hazel.
It's very interesting. I love that. And one of your co-stars was Denise Richards. I mean, how iconic. What was that like to work alongside Denise? That's just so cool.
She is hilarious. Honestly, we had so much fun. She's so nice. She's so down to earth. And she just, we have a script and everything, but she would just like throw in lines here and there and we'd all be laughing. We couldn't keep it together. So much fun to work with her.
That's awesome. I love that. I thought she did a great job. She was like kind of exactly what you'd expect for that mom in the role and everything. I thought it was great, especially when she was like wanting a dress or something from your character, like, where's my dress? Like, when is it going to arrive? Like expecting so much of you. But another one of your co-stars is Tessa Brooks. And now she is a social media influencer. She is big on TikTok, on Instagram. What did you see kind of like from her perspective was it like, yeah, this is like my life, like this is how I live, like this is every day for me?
For sure. When we do that Fish Friday scene, when we're in the car driving, I remember we were talking, and a lot of that was just us talking and hanging out all night, just saying whatever. And she was like, it's so weird because like I'm acting, but also this is my life. So she's like, it's so weird how like parallel this is. So it was really cool. And yeah, we had a lot of chances to talk about, like, is this accurate? Is this how it is? And it was cool to see it from like my character's perspective of trying to get as much authenticity into Hazel as I could. So she definitely had some points in the night of filming of this is for sure real and it's kind of freaky. But she was awesome.
That's so cool. Yeah, I was going to say she would have been able to almost help you with your character because like your character was essentially like what she does in her everyday life, which is kind of funny. I love that they seem to just pick really good people for the roles. First of all, the editing was so amazing. I was blown away. I just think even at the end of each episode, there's like a little, almost like an Instagram story, right? Of you being like, hey, like you're going to want to see what happens next, like that kind of thing. So I thought that was so cool. They did such a fabulous job at keeping people engaged, even though I found it engaging anyways. What do you want people to know about Hazel's character?
I definitely want people to see not just, the sad side or the happy side. I want them to see that there's both. I think they did a great job of showing that, even with the editing, how they filmed her YouTube videos when you saw her like turn into the character of Happy Hazel and become this persona versus as soon as the camera's off, she's a different person, which was really cool because I don't think either one was necessarily bad or good. I think there's parts in us that do the same thing. So I want people to realize that it's not just one way or the other, that it is a balance of both. And I think for Hazel's character, in her instance, she kind of lets one outweigh the other. And that's when the mental health struggles kind of kicked in.
That's a good point. I actually like that you said that it isn't just this industry that has like someone turning it on, because when you think of even someone in a boardroom, right, like making a presentation, when you turn that on, you're presenting, like you're in that role. That's, it's not exactly the same, but it's very similar to being in that role of doing your work. And it's just, I think because we view it as, oh, it's just a snapshot into their everyday life, this is what they do, it's so cool, it's kind of similar across the board in different industries. So that's so cool.
I'm trying to think about like fast food places. Like there's been videos that I've seen, I think it's a trend going around right now with people showing their customer service voice and then their real voice. So
right.
It's like, it's super cool how it really is everywhere, not just in the social media world.
That's true. That's a good point. I think that as well helps us understand that one, it is work, it is a job being in the social media space, and two, it's not like you're trying to be fake by putting on like a kind of not even a different persona, but just kind of turning it on, being on in that moment. It's just the same as any other career, whether you're working in fast food. Speaking of fast food, your love interest in the show, you saw him, I guess, when you were going through the drive-thru.
Yeah.
What was that like to be, in your role of having to like fall in love with someone on camera? Like tell us what that's like. I have no idea what that's like.
It was my first time. I've never had like an on-camera relationship, so it was my first on-stage kiss. It was my first all of that. So it was very intimidating at first, for sure. But Zach was wonderful. He's a great actor, and he's a great person in real life as well. So it was really natural. We had a friendship behind camera, which made it more authentic on camera to have that kind of relationship build as it filmed, which was really cool.
That's so cute. I loved it. It was amazing. One of my favorite moments was when you were about to surprise him in the show with the culinary school, I guess, like, what would the term be? Culinary school admission scholarship. Yeah. And it did not go as planned for Hazel's character. So devastating. I felt devastated when I was watching. I was like, no. In that moment, like, what do you want people to know about, I guess, giving people something you think they're going to get a reaction and it's not going as planned? Like, tell us about that scene. Tell us about that moment.
For sure. So I think this is kind of like Hazel's not boiling point quite yet, but it definitely is like a rock in her path. So, you see her meet Keith, and it's kind of this fun thing of he doesn't know anything about social media, so she feels like likes her for her, and she wants to make him happy, just like she tries to do with everyone. It's kind of what she's made it her goal to do in life. And so she puts together this amazing idea in her mind of like, this is going to make him so happy. It's going to solve all his problems. And obviously it does not go nearly as well as planned. And then following that, he then tells her he wants to join the world that he's been so against the whole entire season. And so I think for her, seeing that, she kind of, I think, almost takes back of like, I didn't make someone happy. And she takes it personal of like, I couldn't make this person happy. I failed at my job a little bit. So I think you kind of see her facade crack a little bit there.
Yeah.
Just kind of cool.
I agree. I think it was interesting thinking that she was giving someone something that they wanted so badly. She wanted to give to them. She thought that by giving something so extravagant was going to make them happy. And in turn, it didn't go that way. I thought that was a great moment and a great way to reflect on kind of our own things that we do in life and what we think will make others happy, and we don't necessarily know what will make others happy. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk more about you. How did you get started in the acting world? Like, it is such a unknown space for me, so I'm always curious of people's stories, how they got involved. Tell us a bit about your acting career story.
Okay, it's not super exciting. I've only been acting for about 3 years now, so it's very new to me as well, personally. I've been a singer my whole life. That's kind of what I've done. And so to shift into the acting world, I think it took me a long time to realize and kind of hold myself as an actor and let myself actually step into a role and like tell myself that it's something I could actually pursue or do. But yeah, I've been acting since I think 2017, and it's a crazy world. The auditions, the stress, the anxiety is not so fun for me. I know some people love it, but I do not have a love for it myself. But being able to step into a world that is so different from your own is such a cool experience and gives you such a cool perspective on other people in life. And even if it was, not my personal life, it definitely taught me things in my personal life to use and tools, which is really, really awesome.
That's really cool. So you mentioned a little bit about some of the mental health impacts of being in this space where you're always being judged, essentially. And how do you overcome those feelings of going to an audition, you might not be the one for the role, and having that feeling of rejection, even though it isn't necessarily about you, it's just what they're looking for. How do you overcome those feelings of feeling rejected?
It's hard. To be honest, it really is. And there are some days I'm better at it than others, for sure. Um, Especially if I'm really excited about a role, or I really feel like I could do it well. Um, and then it just, it's not right for me. And it is a concept of, it's not necessarily you, it's just, you have to take in consideration the whole cast, what they've done with everyone else, what the writer viewed the role as. And so it really is so many other elements, besides just your acting capabilities. And so you have to kind of let yourself really remember that, sometimes. But it is not easy, and I will never say that it is, but it's getting easier, I will say, to, remind myself, okay, I just wasn't fit and it wasn't meant for me, and that is okay, and on to the next.
Right.
So
that's right. Yeah. Moving on to the next. That's right. And so Happy Hazel obviously is an amazing role for you. What other like work have you done? I'm actually not super familiar with you and your career as an actor. So fill me in. What else have you done?
So this is, like I said, very new to me. This was my first major role that I ever did, which is why I think I put a lot of pressure on myself for it, to really make sure that I wanted to get it right, especially in the world that we're in with the social media influencers. I knew it would be, judged very harshly if it wasn't done well. And so I was really excited about it. And I'm actually really glad that it was my first major role, because the people I worked with were so amazing, and I thought the story and the message behind it was super cool, which is not very often a role that you get an opportunity to play. Is something that is a very important message to the world we live in. And so other than that, I was able to film in a show called Moxie, directed by Amy Poehler, which I'm really excited. That comes out hopefully soon. I can't really say anything about it necessarily. It's
okay.
not out, but I'm very excited about that one as well.
That's
so
cool.
Definitely stay tuned for that. But until then, yeah, Happy Hazel is pretty much my resume right now.
That's incredible, though. That's amazing. I definitely didn't want to like downplay it. I just wanted to like highlight other things that you've done. But I think for only being in the space a couple years, like that's pretty commendable to have a role like that. I have friends who have been in that world for years and years, and I don't know personally, but I know how hard it must be to go to audition after audition, and for you to land a role like that, like you said, it isn't just being able to say, I got this amazing role. It's something that's so important. It's so important for our young people to see that this is real. Like, this is a reality. Yes, it's a show, but there are so many creators around the world who live this reality. They live the reality of Happy Hazel, that they have millions of followers, subscribers, and tons of people having opinions about them, and it just isn't what it seems on the outside all the time. So I think it's such an important thing to highlight. And from what you do know of people who are in that space, how do you think it plays on their mental health to have millions of eyes on them every single day? Like, have you seen, you don't have to say any names or anything like that, but have you seen people impacted with audiences like Happy Hazel's character?
I think for sure it's really cool, because not only does it apply to the people with the millions of followers and the social media presence, but also the people who look up to those people and say, oh, these lives are so perfect, or, oh, I wish I had these things, or how could they be unhappy in that situation? And then also, I want that, that comparing on social media, which is such an issue. Even with me, like in my personal life, I for sure growing up did that, looking at these influencers who seem to have it all, and I think to myself, well, if only I had these things, then I'd be happy. It's
Absolutely.
such a concept. And I have seen, and you've seen it. I mean, everyone has seen the videos that people post, the unhappy, the crying, the tears, the admittance of, this is not happy for me, this is not something I love to do anymore, the pressure's too much. I think there's plenty of influencers who have come out and been more open about it, especially lately, which I think is awesome, that they've kind of called attention to it and been more honest with their audiences about, okay, this is what my life looks like on camera, but also this is what my life looks like in real life. But that's what I love about Happy Hazel, is that it does apply to not only the big influencers, but also, the people who are watching them or who aspire to be one. Of, even though it may be a bigger scale, you can take it down and say, I for sure have caught myself feeling like I need to be somebody on social media that I necessarily am not. So I think it's really cool.
I think so too, and I agree. One of the things I did love about watching is that there were those moments I felt like I was on Instagram watching someone's Instagram story. So that's what is so great about the show, is you all of a sudden feel like I'm in that social media space consuming this content. Oh wait, I'm actually watching something, and here's the other side of their life. So I thought that was super cool. And on that note as well, about saying like what happens behind the scenes, I love the scene where you see all of Hazel's PR packages, or like all the packages she gets, like literally a half wall full of packages. And then Keith's character is like, what's all this about? And Hazel's like, just open them up. And the first one he opens is like the knife set. But I thought it was so cool to see that here's someone who gets all these things for free because of their influence. And it doesn't necessarily matter to have those things. Like the things don't matter. That doesn't bring happiness. But from a consumer, like the content consumer's point of view, wow, getting all this PR must be amazing, all these free packages, free things, but it truly doesn't impact our mental health. It doesn't necessarily make us feel happier to have all these things sent to us. What can you speak on in that realm of the like PR packages, having things, getting materialistic things, like from your role as Hazel, what could you share about that?
For sure. I mean, that you'll see too in the final episode, which is so fun. That kind of really is what makes her go over the edge and kind of explode mentally, I think. And so it definitely seems like it's such an amazing thing to have, of all these people sending you things and all these free gifts, like you said, free. But you have to also realize a lot of the things people send, they send you in an expectation to do something for them in return, or it's more of like a conditional gift. And so I think people have this pressure put on them when they get things of, okay, well now I have to do something for them, or okay, well now I have to appreciate this, or if I don't say yes or thank you, then I'm not grateful enough. And it does impact that mentally, and it doesn't always come with just a free gift. That isn't what it always is. So yeah,
that's a really good point. That's such a good point, because I think a lot of these places, they send stuff obviously hoping for something in return, right? Like, yes, they want to gift things to the creator, but they also are, a little bit hoping that they'll be able to appear on their stories or their YouTube or whatever it is. So I think that's a great point. I think all of that, it's so great to hear, because I am by no means like a major content creator. Anything, I'm on YouTube a little bit, I'm on Instagram, and I do get some stuff like gifted to me and stuff, which is great. But I just can't imagine I would never aspire to be in the role of Hazel with the millions of followers, millions of subscribers, because I think people just don't understand the pressure. Like you said, having that expectation, like, I don't even want to open these packages because a sense of obligation goes with these packages. It isn't just Christmas, right? And so it is interesting that people can now see that there's so much more to all of this. And I just think it's such an important message. I'm so happy that we're able to talk about it, and that you, in your role, you've brought so much of this to light as Hazel. I think it's wonderful. Let's go back to talking about you a little bit. I want to know a little bit more about your story. You are a singer.
Yeah.
And were you on American Idol?
Yes, I was.
Okay, tell us a bit about that. When was that?
So that was probably my first glimpse at the world of reality TV, and things that you see and look up to are maybe not always what they seem. But yeah, I was 15. I was very young. I made the deadline to audition by 2 weeks. And I'd watched the show my whole life and always wanted to be up there. Carrie Underwood, David Archuleta, Kelly Clarkson, all of them idols to me. So it really was such an amazing opportunity for me, and I would never change it for the world. I absolutely loved it. But it definitely was an eye-opener for me of okay, this is what the world is kind of like, and this is what being on this show really is like. And you kind of see the behind the scenes, which are very different from what you maybe see on TV. I was a little nervous. Little 15-year-old Sabrina was very shy and not necessarily a very big personality, which, as you'll see on the show, they like to see. But I ended up, whenever a camera came around, I wouldn't say anything, because I was afraid that they would twist my words or make me out to be somebody that I wasn't. So instead, I just was mute, and I said, I just will not say anything, and hopefully that my voice will be enough to push me through. They were like, well, we can't really do anything if you're not going to say anything. I was like, but
Hair twist.
I don't know, like, I just, I don't know, but yeah, it was a great experience. I met so many amazing people on the show. The judges were really nice, really great. Everyone I worked with was awesome, but it definitely was like a pressure-filled situation that a 15-year-old was not necessarily ready for. And more specifically, that I was not ready for. But yeah, no, I loved it, and it's always a fun story to tell, and it's always nice to just have of a memory, and yeah, it was really great.
Definitely a memory that is worth talking about and so cool, so exciting. And I think even though in that time you didn't know, it probably helped prepare you for the world that you're in now. Having to have that like thick skin and know that things aren't always just about you, it's about like what people are looking for in a role. So I think, it probably helped prepare you for now, even though at the time you didn't feel ready for it.
For sure. Oh, for sure. Yeah, especially with my self-confidence at 15. It was lacking, and I mean, as most 15-year-olds are,
Definitely
and I definitely didn't know what I wanted to do, who I was at the time, which I don't think any 15-year-old necessarily does, but
no.
That definitely prepared me a lot for, it shook me a little bit of, hey, like, you need to be able to know who you are so that when you're asked, you can say it, and you cannot be afraid of it, and you can be confident in it. And love who you are and embrace that, and I still to this day am for sure not professional at that at all, but much better at it now than I was back then, for sure.
Tell us a little bit about where you're from. Are you from LA, in the LA area?
No, I'm actually from Utah.
That's awesome. I love it. Utah.
Yeah. So I moved out to LA when I started my acting career. So 2017. Yeah, I had an opportunity that just kind of presented itself, and I had to jump on it and moved out here, just kind of hoping things worked out, and it definitely has been a blessing for sure for me, not just in the career, but also just independently who I am, to be able to move away from home and experience the world and grow independently was really cool. So I love it out here.
That's awesome. What's the difference living in Utah versus living in LA?
Oh my gosh, where do I begin?
I'm sure there's a few differences.
There's a lot of differences. No, personally, the biggest difference is that I don't have my family that I grew up with, or like friends that I grew up with out here. So I kind of it forced me to find who I was. And, out here people are very different, which is amazing. I love how different everyone is, how opinionated everyone is, how you can find someone in any genre of belief or thought or anything. And it's cool because I've learned so much that I don't think I would have had the opportunity to learn in Utah out here. And also I've been able to, kind of find who I was and grow that way. When I do go home, I'm able to say, oh, this is who I am, without any like outside influence. It's kind of, you have to figure it out for yourself, which I've really loved. So very different that way, for sure. But I don't know, I love LA. I do.
That's so cool. What are your favorite things about LA? Give us like an inside scoop. We're out here in like cold Eastern Canada. We want to know what's it like in sunny California?
In the sunny California. Well, I love the beach.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a beach in Utah, so that was for sure the biggest plus coming here. Even though I don't go nearly as much as I wish I did, I definitely told myself I was going to go every day, all the time, and I have not done that. But
that's okay.
The beach for sure. Don't necessarily love the traffic. There's a lot of us here. There's
yes.
a lot of people, and so that's not the best sometimes, but also I do love the food. I love how diverse the food is. I can get anything I want at any time. There's like a place for everything you're craving, which is super cool.
That is cool.
Yeah, probably the beach, the food, the people. I love the people most of the time. I have a kind of scary story, but I don't know if we have time to share it.
Yeah, for sure. If you have time, we have time.
Yeah, so it was like I had just moved into my new apartment, and I was meeting up with a friend for dinner in Santa Monica, and we were leaving the restaurant, and as we were walking to our car, this man came up to us and just was like, I don't mean to bother, but can you guys move to the other side of the street? And we were like, oh, so like what? Like, what do you mean? And he was like, I just can't be around women. I can't have women around here. I believe the women species are feces and don't belong on Earth. I wish the police would come and take you away right now. If ISIS were here, I wish he would blow your brains out. Like,
What
full
the
on
fuck?
threatening. So terrible. And at first, my friend and I, we were just kind of in shock. We were like, a what? And, huh? And then he, like, walked away, and I was a little bit of a smart mouth, and I said, okay then. And he turned around and then started cussing us out again, and then walked away. And my friend and I, we had a bonding experience. We both left, and we were like, haha, that was so weird and scary, weird. And then as soon as we left, we both like called each other and were like crying.
Oh yeah,
That was terrifying.
absolutely.
So that happened in LA, which was probably not the funnest experience out here.
Yeah, not the most proud LA moment.
Not the best, but he does not speak for all the LA people. But yeah, definitely that I did not like.
No kidding. And it's scary, and this is sad, but as a woman, it is a little scarier being out in the world sometimes, because there is just that sense of feeling vulnerable, especially when you're with another, right? Like, you don't know what people are going to say, what they're going to do, and you want to stand up for yourself. You want to say something, because people don't, like, we don't deserve people to walk all over us and say a bunch of garbage, but it's also slightly terrifying, because had you said more than you said, like, who knows what this weirdo would have done, right? So it's actually kind of sad that women have to live that way, you know, like, kind of being like a little on edge, like, what's he gonna say, what's he gonna do? I'm sorry that you had to experience that.
No, I mean, I can't say that everyone's gonna go through that, but it definitely, yeah, as a woman in LA, as a woman anywhere, you know, there's just some things that we have to take precautions that not everyone has to do. So, the territory, which is very unfortunate, and I wish we could change it.
I know, it is unfortunate. I feel like we're slowly, you know, increasing conversation around some of these things to hopefully have women in the world feeling safer. But on that note, what did you wish you would have known before you entered the acting world?
I wish I would have been more aware of, just like the social media influencer, that there's more work behind the scenes. Same thing with acting. There's a lot more work that goes into being an actor and you know, becoming a different person on camera, especially for Hazel. I think even I had the tendency to say, oh, like, I would complain about having a big house and a nice car and all these followers and people that love me and want to see me and get my autograph. And, you know, I for sure said some things. And so being an actor, same thing, like, oh, it must be so hard to, you know, memorize lines and go on camera and then just say it. It's so much more that goes into it. And so it just it was a very humbling experience for me to learn what really goes into those roles and those characters and the process behind it, to be able to be somebody that you aren't. Because Hazel and I are very different in our personalities. We have some similarities, but ultimately very different. And so I definitely wish I would have been more open and more open-minded about that, for sure.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think different things that seem easy are not so easy. Like, I think we like to simplify things, like, oh yeah, you just show up to an audition, you might get the role, maybe not next audition. And the work doesn't start and end when you walk through the door of that audition. Like, you were preparing before, you were memorizing those lines, which, one, I can't imagine how hard that is to memorize lines. You're not just memorizing these lines, you then have to have some kind of emotion, you have to have facial expressions, you have to be doing all kinds of different things all at once by essentially, like, you're, like you said, being someone that you're not. You're not just saying stuff with your own personality, your own voice, like, you are acting. There's so much more. And this is, I mean, unrelated but related. I've been in the pageant space, and people always think it's so easy. You step on stage, you walk in a bathing suit, a gown, you answer a couple questions. How hard can that be? I've seen some great videos where people on the street are asked some of the top 5 question and answers, like, or top 5 questions, like, what law would you make and why? Or what can you say about the gun laws in the US right now? Like, things like that. And people are always speechless. They never know what to say. They can never come up with anything because from the outside, it looks so easy. But I think that's one of the beauties of social media, acting, maybe pageants, is that we make it look effortless because that's what we do. And then other people, that's part of the job. And then other people try to do it, or they see behind the scenes and they realize, wow, this is actually harder than it looks. There's more that goes on behind the scenes than you really know about.
Sure.
Yeah. Like, what do you think if a young girl came up to you and said, like, I really want to get into acting, I want to be a singer, I want to be in the social media space, what words of encouragement or what words of wisdom would you give to that young woman?
I think for me, the most important thing when it came to learning about the acting world and the social media world, doing the research for that, was really just doing my due diligence, researching, really getting to know as much as you can about it before you choose to make it your career choice. I think everyone should have an opportunity to be able to do what they love. And if that is something you love and are passionate for, then I 100% encourage it. And I say, go for it and do it, but do the work. I want you to be able to know what you're stepping into. And I mean, I'm by no means know everything in my industry at all. I'm still learning every day, but that is what makes it exciting. And that is what I found my love in is, okay, well, why am I doing what I'm doing, and researching it, and then being able to see the other side of it and seeing, the reactions and the impact that, even doing Hazel has made of people that have reached out and said, I had no idea this is what goes on behind the scenes. Thank you for sharing. Or I had no idea this happens to everyone. I personally struggle with mental health on social media. As a child growing up in social media, for sure it was a big impact on me. And so that is what pushes me forward. So my encouragement to them is find why you're doing what you're doing and why you're doing what you love, and then do it.
That's awesome. That's great. I think that's so great. And you mentioned a few times too about like the mental health aspect. What do you do to be able to overcome any of those feelings, whether it be anxiety or feeling overwhelmed? What do you do to overcome those feelings?
I think, once again, I am not a master at
Of course.
Health, but I've definitely been able to find outlets that help me. Growing up, I think comparing was the hardest thing on social media for me, is looking at, the lives other people had, the things, the bodies, the looks that people had that I necessarily didn't. And comparing myself and saying, oh, I wish I had this, or oh, I wish I had this, or oh, I wish I looked like this. And stepping away from that and finding the balance in social media is an amazing tool. It really is. It connects people around the world. It's able to unite people that never would have met. It saves lives, and it really is a tool when used correctly. But it is a balance. And so for me, when I'm feeling overwhelmed or stressed or anxious, I have to step away and, find my reality and say, okay, well, this is what I have. This is who I am. And I also depend a lot on my friends and having a support system that is real and valid and genuine and authentic. And when you find those people, then the social media aspect or the desire to be somebody you're not kind of fades a little bit, which for me helps a lot, for sure.
That's awesome. So, that is really important. I think that is in those moments of being with our friends or family, doing things that we love, whether it's like a hobby or out running or something like that. In those moments, none of those other things matter. The followers, the likes, the money, like none of it matters at all. And I think we just have that admiration for people with fame and money and things. We just always think that maybe those are the answers. But when we are in those moments with the genuine people of our lives, none of that matters.
Right. And you see it with Hazel too.
Absolutely.
She realized as she finds people that, her family's maybe not the strongest or most supportive family in the world, and her friends maybe even. And so when she finds Keith, it's that piece of authenticity that she's kind of missing, which is, I think, is why she clings to him so much. Of, this is such an exciting thing because he's so genuine and he's so real, and he doesn't care about what I have or my persona or my likes. And so all of that money, all of that fame, the followers, it really kind of diminishes its value when you find an authentic person, which is really cool.
Absolutely. Definitely. Yeah. That moment that Keith didn't know who Hazel was, she was like, this man must know who I am. I'm going to make sure he knows who I am.
You don't know me?
Excuse me? I'm going to order 4 cheeseburgers or whatever she was like ordering, and like all that was great. I love that. Okay. One last question, because we actually are taking up more of your time than I even expected. What piece of advice would you give to your younger self?
Find the people who love you for you, and find the balance of social media and the tools that you use, for sure.
Love it. That's perfect.
Everything. I think, like I said, social media is an awesome tool, but you have to use it correctly and you have to be smart about it. And if you put all of your, value in social media, you're never going to be satisfied. It's finding value in the things around you, and then also using social media as a tool. So yeah, I definitely would tell myself to stop comparing and stop putting all the pressure on yourself to be or look like somebody you're not. Embrace who you are, and then find the people who love you for who you are. And that for sure would have changed a lot about my life. So
that's amazing. And something, I can remind myself of things like that as well every single day, because I think it is easy to get caught up, right? Like in different moments of believing that things could be better if we had this, if things were different, but having that real love for who you are and the people around you and all of that, it's so important. In that comparison, I feel like it's a journey. It's definitely like not a destination of ending comparison. It's a journey of like every day working on those things, because we compare ourselves in so many different things. I'm a mom now, and I have found myself so many times comparing myself to other moms, like, oh, she's feeding her kids this, or oh my God, her kid can already say the ABCs and it's like a year old. Like, what the hell? So it's definitely like that comparison. It filters into our life, in our lives, in so many different ways. And so it's definitely a journey. And I love that that's part of who you've become, is trying to end that comparison. And I thank you so much for all of your words of wisdom talking about Hazel. I can't wait for the last episode. That's so exciting.
Oh my God, I can't wait for you to watch it. It really is it's the big blow up, which is sad, but also really good for her, I think.
She needed it.
Thank you so much for having me on. I've had a blast.
Good.
It's all a learning journey, and I think I learned a lot from Hazel, and I hope that everyone else who watches it can learn even just one thing, or just realize, it's not always as great as it seems, and your life is great how it is, and to embrace that and enjoy it.
Absolutely. I think so. I don't think anyone could watch even just the first episode on its own and not learn something or take something away. I really think it's really important, and I'm really excited to be able to share it myself on my social and show people that it isn't always fabulous and amazing. And it's not always what it seems on the outside, but that's what's so cool about you showing that, is there's so much more, and it's important. And I think we need constant reminders, honestly. Like, I think everyone needs to watch Happy Hazel like once a year just to remind themselves. Yes, truly.
The world we're living in. Yeah, yes. And I definitely can't take credit or anything.
No, of course.
Jared and James writing and directing, and they are phenomenal. And so I've loved working with them, and I think it's super cool. Not only this project, but just all of the projects that they've come out with, Radiant Studios on YouTube. Their motto is to share meaningful stories and to spark meaningful conversation, which is super cool. So I hope that in Hazel they can do that, and anyone who watches it, even just talking about it, get the conversation rolling about mental health in social media, I think is so huge. So I hope that people can take that away from it, for sure.
It is huge. And you were able to bring it to life. Of course, it was, their writing and all that stuff, but you brought it to life, and you were incredible. And I can't wait for people to watch it and see it, and also be able to hear from you and what your life has been like, your journey to Happy Hazel and all that. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks for listening to Universally Judged. Be sure to subscribe to our show and leave us a review. If you want more great content, find us on Instagram at Universally Judged. See you next week.